Hi everyone, this video is part of FinLight's educational series, and today we're going to be talking about effective financial management. So unlike some of our other videos, this one isn't specifically focused on one topic, but instead we're going to go over a variety. Let's get into it. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about income, saving and budgeting, investing and risk management, and lastly, some general financial tips. So when you're thinking about income and taxes, a couple of key terms that you should know are gross pay and net pay. So your gross pay are your earnings before any deductions, and your net pay is the pay you take home. This is what you'll see deposited in your account after any deductions are taken out. So the things that can be taken out include your federal income tax, your state and local income taxes, your FICA contribution, which is for Social Security and Medicare, any retirement accounts you choose to contribute to. Most people do have a 401k just because their employer also matches their contribution. So that's something to think about when when you get a job and when you start to contribute to your retirement accounts. And then also your FSA and HSA, the health account contributions. So this is an example of a pay stub where this person earned $2,960, but her net income is only $2,159. And this is after all of the deductions, which are listed here, were taken out. Now let's talk a little bit about saving. So the reason why it's important to save is because it provides you with financial security in case you have a loss of job or maybe there's some unexpected situation that occurs. And typically people save to create this kind of emergency fund, which is your cushion in case you lose your source of income. And many people have this cover about 3 to 6 months of expenses because that's how long it takes the average person to get another job after they've been laid off or are unemployed. So when you're saving, the first thing you should do is pay off any high interest debt you have. So this is mainly for credit cards because those can accrue a lot of interest over time, and it's more beneficial to pay that off rather than saving at first. The second is to set your goals and adjust them accordingly based on your long and short-term plans. This is really important because your goals will change over time, and it's important to adapt to that. And lastly, you should consider the different types of savings accounts you can have. In our other video on savings, we do detail some of those, so you can go check that out. But one example of this would be a high yield savings account. You might be wondering why you should maybe put your money in a high yield savings account and not a traditional savings account. And it's very helpful to grow your money, but you need to also be mindful that there are some restrictions on accessing your money due to some withdrawal limits. So if that's a concern for you, then you should decide which type of savings account you should do based on your goals. Now, when you're thinking about saving, you might also start thinking about budgeting because they kind of go hand in hand. Here are some budgeting methods that many people use in order to create a budget for themselves. So first is the 50-20-30 method. Here, people split their money by 50% needs, 20% savings and debt repayment, and then 30% wants. These proportions can be adjusted based on your needs, but 50-20-30 is just a general rule. The next is the envelope method. And you may think this is outdated, but many people do this method just on an app these days. But it involved putting physical cash into specific envelopes based on what you're going to use the money for. For example, if you're paying rent, you'd put that money in an envelope and only use that money to pay rent. Next is pay yourself first. Here, you have to put your money into a savings account before you pay off any bills and before you buy anything you want. And this makes sure that you have some set contribution every month to your savings account, that you're never missing out on contributing to savings because you purchased something else. Lastly is the zero budget method. And what this involves is calculating all of your expenses and all of your payments so that by the time you get to the end of the month, your budget is completely zero. So this does require a bit more of work because you do need to plan out all of your expenses in 1 month, but it's really helpful if you want to see where your money goes exactly. Now, if we're thinking about the difference between saving and investing, the main difference is that when you save, you're still holding your cash, you're just putting it in different accounts, whereas investing involves holding assets other than cash. And sometimes it does require a higher risk tolerance. So here are some examples of what saving and investing could be used for. Saving could be an emergency fund, something new you want to buy, a vacation. So most people save for short-term goals, whereas investing could be something like retirement, education, owning a home. So investing is typically used for longer-term goals. When you're investing, some things you need to consider are first, your risk tolerance. How how willing are you to take a risk with that money? For example, if I'm going to college in a year, I might not be as risky. I don't want to have a high risk tolerance because I do need that money to pay for college in the future. So I might invest in something like a certificate of deposit, and that has a lower risk. That has a lower risk than something like a volatile stock would have. The next is the liquidity of your assets. You need to know how much access you need to your money to decide what kind of investment you want to put it in. For example, if I put my money in a bond, it's not going to be accessible for at least 10 years. So I need to keep that in mind when I'm making my decision on what to invest in. Lastly, are your short or long-term goals? And again, this kind of ties into both of the previous points. You need to decide what you want to do with your money, and then that's where you're going to put it into investments. Some general tips for financial management. So, first, you should definitely start early because good financial management works over time, and starting early can give you a good foundation. So, some ways teenagers could do this is one, by becoming an authorized user on their parents' credit card. This can really help you build up your credit, even though your parents are still paying off the credit card. The credit card debt, you are on the card, so you are building up your credit. The second thing that teenagers could do is start a Roth IRA. So as soon as you get a job, even if it's just babysitting, you can open a Roth IRA and you can report that income and start your retirement accounts then and there. The next tip is to review and update your goals, budgets, and investments regularly. And as I mentioned before, this is really just because your goals will change over time. And it's important to keep your budget and your savings goals adaptable to those kinds of changes. The third is to diversify where your money is in order to reduce risk. Especially when investing, it's important to invest in more than one type of investment. So I wouldn't put all my money into stocks and I wouldn't put all my money into bonds because your money can work in different ways and it's good to just diversify in general. Here's a Blue activity which you can use to test your knowledge. I will put the link in the description so you all can try it out. My sources for this slideshow. Thank you for watching the video. As always, if you want to find more information, you can go to our website, which is projectfinlight.com, or you can check out the other videos on our YouTube channel, which is also Project Finlight. Thank you for watching.